to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item is to adopt the agenda, and I'd like to ask for a couple of amendments to the agenda. The first one would be that we remove item A under resolution 2018-18. During the admin and finance meeting today, we discussed the possibility of making that a contract employee, and that will be researched and presented hopefully at the next council meeting. And then also under executive session, I would like to add South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2, parentheses 1, for personnel. With those two additions or corrections to the agenda, I would ask for a motion to approve the corrected agenda.
Make a motion to approve the corrected agenda as explained by the mayor.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the corrected agenda. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And Misty, one thing I did not do is call the roll. You would do that so kindly, please.
Arlene Kane.
Here.
Ray Heckaby.
Here.
Bill Lukens.
Here.
Martin Meyer.
Here.
Bob Nelson.
Here.
Sam Powers.
Here.
Ron Richards.
Here.
Allison Ritterbusch.
Here.
Thank you.
And we do have a quorum. Also, I want to point out, if there is a conflict of any of the items that we will be discussing and voting on tonight, it is incumbent upon the council person who has the conflict to please notify everyone on the council.
Mayor, I need to address that. I want to let everybody know on the new business item D regarding the SHCRI, reconsider the contract. I am the treasurer of that program, so I want to make sure everybody knows that. I most likely, if everybody's okay with that, I'd like to vote on at least being able to have the discussion about it. I feel like that's important, but not on the final item.
Okay, you've heard Allison's explanation. Are there any concerns for voting to discuss the item? I don't see that as a conflict of interest. Garland?
Are you going to vote on it?
She's not going to vote on the actual, if there is an actual decision that has to be made, but simply on discussing.
On the discussion part of it, but not the final part.
Well, so be it then. Thank you for bringing that up, Allison. Okay, we move on to the minutes. I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the October 15th council meeting. You have those in your packages.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the October 15th council meeting with the following change. The correct package here. On the second page, under resolution, the first resolution, table the resolution 2018-19 to create a part-time library clerk position. That should read 2018-18.
Is that the only correction that you have?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other corrections? If not, I would accept a second.
Second.
Been moved then and seconded that we approve the minutes as corrected, changing that resolution number. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are approved as corrected. Moving on to current claims. You have in your packages bills in between for $141,244. I accept a motion to approve those bills in between.
I'll make a motion to approve the bills in between for $141,244. Second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the bills in between. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The bills in between are approved. Current claims are for $89,399.39. Again, you have a copy of those in your packages. I'd accept a motion to approve those current claims.
I'll make a motion to approve the current claims of $89,399.39.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve those current claims. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Current claims are approved. We have also item C, Wells Fargo credit cards for $4,980.80. You have those charges in your package. I'd accept a motion to approve the credit card charges.
I'll make a motion to approve the Wells Fargo credit card charges for $4,980.80.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve those charges. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We move on to communications from the public. We did receive notice that Matt Rankin is not here tonight. Is that correct? It's difficult to see out into the audience. Are there any other communications from the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the update for the council from our librarian, Don Johnson. And Don, again, it seems like every time you come here, we've got a public hearing scheduled. This one's for 7:15, so you've got a few minutes.
Okay, I think you do that because you know I like to talk. Thank you for having me come. It's all I'll just lean over a little. I wanted to start out with a few numbers. Don't want to overpower you with numbers. Last month we had 30 new cards at the library. We have, which makes our total 5,589 for the total number of cards we have out. We checked out 4,448 items to 4,748 visitors. So that's what we did last month for a little bit. If you've been by the library lately, you'll notice that we've got some landscaping going on our front pods on both sides of the front of the library. It has been on our schedule to do this year. And Sean and the gentleman that work with him in the water department have kindly offered some time to come and clean that up for us. I believe our plan is to return it basically to the state that it was in, with just some fresh rock, fresh gravel, freshen things up a little bit. Plant some more vegetation and make it so that it will maybe live this time. So that whenever Sean has time to finish that, he'll come work on that for us. We appreciate that. It being fall, people are getting kind of homey and wanting to change up their routine a little. If you find you have a few hours, come up and volunteer at the library. We always have a turnover, it seems, at the change of seasons, people changing their schedules up. But come in during business hours and we'll see if we've got some place for you to help out. I'm sure we do. We're gearing up for our summer reading program already for next summer. The theme is outer space. Reading is out of this world. One of the things Amanda has gathered up for us is we're trying to see if we can't get a video conference with some real astronauts. So we have to get started on some of that early. I think those astronauts get left up pretty quick. Amanda's having real success with our CS First Coding Club. They just finished a project on coding for social media and had a pizza party to celebrate. Nothing helps celebrate like pizza and some root beer. This time there are 8 young men involved in our coding club. We're really excited to see some of them coming into the library and learning something outside of their norm. And they are real excited. The next project they're going to start is on coding video games. So they talked all about that at the pizza party and what kind of games they wanted to make and how they wanted to make that work out. Our story time is growing by leaps and bounds. We're actually overrun with kids on Thursday mornings and all day Friday. It's been on the agenda several times for us to get a part-time employee or a quarter-time employee as it would be. I really appreciate the admin and finance office and the folks at City Hall helping me through this process of deciding what we need and how we're going to take care of it and what we're going to do about it. And we would really like to have someone in place come the first of the year. So thank you for working with me. We'll get that accomplished. I've done, and part of this was doing some research to find out just what kind of full-time staff, libraries of our size, our circulation, our visitors, just our statistics, what kind of staff we have. I found several places around the United States, and they say that we should have anywhere between 5 and 7 full-time employees based on our statistics and ratios. So I'm excited that we're doing that well. In doing this process of evaluating getting another employee, we've gone through our procedures manual and updated those to make sure that we couldn't cut some corners somewhere and make sure that we were working to our best efficiency at the library with the staff that we have. And that brought up the strategic plan, and as I looked at it, we've done really well with the plan that we had 3 years ago, and it's time to write up another one of those and set some more goals for the library. I've been getting some feedback from the staff, from City Hall, and from some of our patrons on just what would you like to see happening at our library now. A library, like I said before, is really a living community up there. It's always changing, it's always growing. We have to evaluate what we're doing and make decisions on whether we continue it or we start something else. One of the new things that we've got started is called an escape room. Has anyone been to an escape room? Okay, Amanda and I have both explored it at some conferences and online, and we've made a small purchase with some locks and some boxes and access to some games and puzzles. And I actually, after the admin and finance meeting today, went back to the library and unsuccessfully completed this escape room. Time ran out on me. I wasn't able to save the bomb from going off. It's lots of fun. You have lock boxes and you have to finish puzzles and figure out what the combinations are, and we had to unlock 4 padlocks, the 3 of us, and we couldn't get it done. So it was quite the challenge. We're excited to investigate that more. As we talk to people about it, the teens are real excited to come in with their friends and work puzzles and games, and I think would be a really good building experience for a group of a group of workers to come in and learn how to work together and do things together, because it really did take 3 of us and some interesting conversation to figure out what this was all about and how to go look online and get clues and answers and figure out, yeah. It was a lot of fun. So if you're interested, come in and I'll show you how that works. And last I have, November is food for fines at our library. Instead of having to pay the 25 cents a day or the $1 a day for your your late items, you can bring in a can of a non-perishable food item, and we'll give you $5 credit for that. It really helps clear up our fines. It allows some of our patrons to be able to use the library again, which is what we want in the first place. And at this time of year...
I'm going to have to interrupt you. The time is 7:15.
At this time of year, it makes good to help the food bank out.
Okay. We'll ask questions after, if anyone has any questions afterwards. I would like to call to order the hearing. We're here and act on applications from transferring an existing retail on-off sale, malt beverage, and South Dakota farm wine licenses from Battle Mountain Convenience to Corner Pantry, who recently purchased the property at 740 Battle Mountain Avenue. So at this time, the hearing is declared open. I'd ask if there's any comments from the public, whether this transfer of licenses should take place or should not take place. Hearing none from the public, are there any questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the hearing. And I would ask for a motion to approve that transfer of the existing on-off retail malt beverage license and South Dakota farm licenses.
I'll make a motion to act on the applications to transfer the existing retail on-off sale malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine licenses to from CS Inc. doing business as Battle Mountain Convenience to MG Oil Company Inc. doing business as Corner Pantry number 11 and number 11B to be used at 740 Battle Mountain Avenue. Second.
To clarify, your action is to approve it?
Yes.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we do approve this transfer. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And Dawn, did you have anything more to add to your report?
No. Is there any questions from the city council?
Just a couple.
Sure.
The first number you mentioned, what was that? Was that card holders or?
We had 30 new cards last month, which brings our total card holding to 5,589.
That's a pretty good amount of cards for a town of 3,700 people.
Yes. Yes, it is.
That means that we're serving a lot of people outside of the community of Hot Springs, doesn't it?
Yes, we are.
Great.
We're overachievers.
Yes,
you are.
Couple of other things that I noted. Dawn, I really appreciate the in-house cooperation with our water department. Had some extra time to be able to assist, and I think that was really good. And I want to thank you for your patience on the part-time employee and the research and the answers to the questions that came today in the admin finance meeting. And I hope that we can come to a good resolution with a contract employee.
Well, I'm sure that we will, and it's been a real learning experience for me too, so I appreciate it.
Are there any questions from the council?
I have a question. You had mentioned you're working on trying to put together a video conference with real astronauts.
Yes.
A little more on that. Is it a 10-minute thing, a half-hour thing? A lot of opportunity for interaction?
Yes, we'll open it to the public. They actually have these video chats you can do with them all year round. So what we need to do is get a hold of them and put in for our time and when they want to do it. And they'll set up an hour and we'll put it up on the big screen and visit with them.
Is it through that NASA program?
It's through a NASA
is?
program, and because next summer is outer space, they really pushed it, and I got information on it, at the Springfield, Illinois Library Conference, and then Amy handed out information on it at the State Library Conference. So we were going to have an astronaut come visit until we read the fine print. And, you know, we can do a lot, but there were some things that we just can't pull off. But for a while there, we were like, ooh, let's read up on this.
Time-wise, is it something that, we'll be able to put together so that the younger folks in the community will be able to
Absolutely,
attend?
we would like to do
Is
it
the focus on
sometime.
them?
Yeah, we would like to do it during sometime in June, during our summer reading
Great.
program. And ideally on a Tuesday evening, which is our family night, and we get a variety of age groups into our library. But yeah, we'll keep you up on that. We'll obviously let the town know that we're going to visit with some astronauts when the time comes.
Thank you.
I have just a couple questions.
Yes.
Did you say it's $5 per can?
Yes. If
Okay,
you
so
bring
if I have
that-
a $5 fine and I bring in 1 can, then break
Yes.
that? And then if you remember a few years ago, we worked together to see if any city employees were on your list. And so if you see anybody on that list as a city employee, let me know and we'll do that
I
again.
think they were good.
Okay, we cleaned it up pretty good that
Yeah.
last time, but I'm just offering if there's,
Yes, I'll let you know.
we want to make sure that.
Yes,
Okay,
I'll let you
mine's
know,
okay,
but I
but
haven't run across any of them like that.
Thanks, Don. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. And just a reminder, the Hot Springs Library is the library that was selected in South Dakota as the most beautiful library to visit in the state, along with places like the New York Public Library and others. So thank you for all the hard work and you and your staff do. We really do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, we move on in the agenda. We consider the personnel actions A through M.
I'll make a motion to approve the personnel actions A through M.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we approve personnel actions listed on your agenda A through M. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion?
Regarding the spin instructor, is that the only thing that they're doing is spin?
Yeah. And then somebody that you think could be the She's on this one.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving these actions signify by saying aye. Opposed? All approved. Moving on to committee reports, administrative and finance. Bob?
Administrative and finance met today at City Hall at 1 o'clock. We had quite a few folks that participated today. Mayor Cotty, Bill was with us, Ellison was with us, Marty was with us, Misty, Kim, Don, Chris Catke, and myself. A couple of old business items I'll bring you up to date on. The surplus property, buildable lots. A replat of the lots on the old water fill station has been reviewed by planning and zoning, and that's on your council agenda for approval tonight. Don will also talk about a little bit the new part-time position of the library. The library is requesting an additional part-time library clerk position to start in 2019. The committee is recommending the position be a contracted position and not extend beyond the 2019 budget year. Dawn has adjusted her library budget for 2019 to pay for the position. She will also have a proposed contract and explain how the position will be funded for the council's consideration at the November 19th council meeting. Did I leave anything out?
No, sounds great.
All right. Some new business items. The committee asked Misty to look into reinvesting the city's idle funds with Wells Fargo or First Interstate Bank to get a better return on our money. Misty also reviewed with us the additional appropriations that will be necessary on the final supplemental appropriation ordinance that will be on the agenda for the November 19th council meeting. We also met with the Southern Hills Community Recreation Initiative folks. They wanted to talk with the committee about their request for the council to reconsider the fee the city is charging them for the use of the Mueller Center. That's also on your agenda for tonight's meeting. And then we talked about a new city maintenance foreman position to to create a new city maintenance foreman position and job description within the streets department. This position is on your agenda for tonight's packet. And if approved by the council, the committee recommends that only current city employees will be able to apply for the position. The next meeting will be the first Monday of December. 1 o'clock, City Hall.
Thank you, Bob. Airport Advisory Committee, Bill?
The committee met on Thursday, October 28th at 8 a.m. at the airport. In attendance were Ed Jensen, the airport manager, also with Kim and Tracy, myself and Mayor Cotty, 6 members of the Airport Advisory Committee from the public, and also present were David Lapine and Rod Sen from KLJ Engineering. Regarding old business, as far as regarding an aircraft maintenance shop facilities, a meeting was held with a prospective interested party regarding the establishment of an aircraft maintenance business at the Hot Springs Airport. Based on that meeting, the airport manager has compiled a list of necessary improvements to the existing old hangar, and city staff representatives will generate a cost estimate in order to assess the economics of the improvements. If the economics are favorable, funding discussions will be initiated with this council. A motion was approved by the committee to request the city upgrade the old hangar so that it could be leased as a maintenance facility. No updates have been provided regarding the Pete Lean contract for mining sand and gravel. On our follow-up log, the city engineer is continuing to work on the EPA required spill prevention control and countermeasures plan and is currently revising that plan based on comments from the EPA. Representatives from the KLJ Engineering were present and were introduced to the committee, and the 2020 to 2022 capital improvement plan for the airport was discussed. Next, under new business, examples of zoning ordinances for the airport were discussed. Zoning is required since the city has annexed the airport property. The city administrator asked the members of the committee to review the examples, provide recommended changes, and be present during the discussion at the Planning and Zoning Committee meetings to discuss the proposed zoning. Electrical repairs necessary to the old hangar were discussed, and the committee recommended that when the repairs are made to the panel, that it be changed from a 100 amp service to a 200 amp service. This aligns with the potential future use of the hangar as a maintenance facility. The contract for lease of the glider hangar with Black Hills Soaring Club has been signed by the city and forwarded for signature by the Soaring Club. The meeting adjourned at 9:40 a.m. and the next meeting will be Thursday, November 29th, 8 a.m. at the airport.
Okay. Thank you, Bill, and excellent report. And again, one of the reasons that we are looking at making that investment to provide a maintenance facility, since that airport is annexed, and a typical phase maintenance inspection for an aircraft runs somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000. Because it's part of the city, we would collect sales tax on those items. So it would be a benefit to the city to get that facility there, along with helping our airport to grow. And thank you, Bill, for all your assistance.
And if I could just add, when we talk about sales tax revenue, how big a deal is that? And I did a little back of the envelope calculating, so no warranties are issued with this. But based on what, now everybody other than the folks up here are a bunch of pilots, and boy are they air people. And so they understand this type of thing, and based on the potential revenue that a maintenance facility would have, we could potentially see an additional $30,000 a year in sales tax if my numbers figured right. And if you want to say, okay, well, how does that compare with everything else? When I look back at the information we were provided on sales tax revenue from other businesses in town, that ranks up along with a Dakota Mart or a Sonny's Superfood. So it's not just, hey, we're going to sell 3 more candy bars and get another 52 cents in the coffer. So it's potentially could be very beneficial to the city as far as funding the airport.
Thank you, Bill, for that input, and that's why we're working so hard to get that facility here in Hot Springs. Custer Fall River Regional Waste Management District, Ron?
Next meeting will be the 8th of November, 7 p.m. at the Mueller Civic Center.
Okay, thank you. Downtown Historic Preservation Commission, Harley?
Our next meeting will be November 7th at 5 o'clock at the library.
Great. Evans Plunge Advisory Committee, Allison?
Evans Plunge Advisory Committee met October 11th, 2018. There was an update on the Wellness Aquatic Manager position. They were down to 4 candidates and in the process of scheduling interviews, and I think there's even steps from there, isn't there? Since the last update when we had this meeting. And there was a supportive definition of what family meant for membership purposes, with it being 2 adults and the children under 18 living in the same household. It was determined that Evans Plunge would be closed on Thanksgiving Day to allow families to get time together, and further discussion regarding holidays were recommended being Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas Day each year. There's no definite dates for winter closure at this time. It appears that there's no major contract projects, but just some updates and maintenance. The exception might be if Steve, is it Blakely? Steve Blakely? Beckley, okay. From the Mountain Springs when he comes, which that has been determined December 6th through the 8th, correct? If he has any recommendations to move forward with, they kept that open to have discussion. There was some question regarding if Steve Winia was going to continue on the committee, and Chris was going to call and see if Steve was still interested. And the next meeting will be November 8th at noon at Evans Plunge.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Parks, Recreation, Beautification, and Cultural Development, Marty?
Parks Committee will meet tomorrow here at the Mueller Civic Center at 3 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Planning and Zoning Commission, Allison?
Yes, give me a second. I lost my planning and zoning. Thanks. Planning and zoning met Wednesday, October 17th at City Hall. There was a discussion regarding the Canton Street lot and line swap for the Armory, which you'll see in your packets, that they had extensive discussion regarding the plot there. And so that got approved and is now in your packets. There continues to be possibility for, depending on the RFP, or if we're going to individually sell those lots. So that was discussed in the group. At this point, there was no updates in regards to the state home. It had not gone through yet, so there was nothing to update the planning and zoning. Scott was going to continue to look at the municipality zoning ordinances regarding the airport zoning and compare it to other municipalities and bring it to the planning and zoning. And let's see, that was all he wrote on. Okay, so the next meeting will be next Wednesday at 7 o'clock at planning zone, or at City Hall.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Public Safety, Bill?
The Public Safety Committee met on Wednesday, October 17th at 2 p.m. at City Hall. President were Mayor Cotty, Bob Nelson, myself, Chief Mike Close. Members of the public that were there for a portion of the discussion was Gerald Culligan and Vern Hagedorn. Under old business, an update of the issues associated with speeding on Evanston Avenue was provided to the 2 residents that live on Evanston Avenue that were present. Regarding our follow-up log, we're continuing to work outstanding action items associated with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers required flood response plan, and opportunities for improvements associated with communication and coordination that were revealed during the Vineyard Fire. Under new business, council members Nelson and Lukens met with a resident prior to the meeting to review concerns of reduced visibility at Evanston and 11th Street and Library and 14th Street. Those concerns were then discussed with the resident at the public safety meeting. The resident was asked to complete a complaint form to enter the concern in the system so the city can generate a work order, if appropriate, to address the concern. In response to a motion passed regarding the mayor's letter of commitment to participate in a review of the Fall River County multi-jurisdictional pre-disaster mitigation plan, the October 1st, 2018 council meeting, the members of the Public Safety Committee have initiated a review of that plan and will forward the results of the review to the Fall River County Emergency Manager once completed. We've set December 3rd as a target date to submit those comments. Chief Close provided a summary of departmental issues and events since the last public safety meeting. A couple items of particular interest. Intoxicated persons at Brookside Park. Based on discussion that we had at the public safety meeting on what our police officers have encountered there, as well as members of the Public Safety Committee is recommending to the Parks and Recreation Committee that the Parks and Recreation ordinance be revised to prohibit the consumption of the, unrestrained consumption of alcohol of all types at the Brookside Park. Right now, the way the ordinance is written, wine and beer is allowed. And what's happening is some individuals are using that as a place to consume a lot of alcohol to the point of intoxication. There's been, even though glass is prohibited, there's been broken glass in the river there, and it's impacted some people bringing their kids and families to that area. So that's an issue that we want to discuss further with Parks and Recreation. Chief Close then provided a summary of key learnings acquired at the International Association of Police Chiefs meeting he recently attended. And the meeting ended at 4:20 p.m. The next public safety meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, which is normally on Wednesday, has been moved to Tuesday, November 20th at 2 p.m. If you happen to view the city activities calendar, we had a little bit of a miscommunication. I think it shows up on the 14th. It is really Tuesday the 20th at City Hall at 2 p.m.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Public Works, Bob and Ray.
Public Works met on October 30th at City Hall. Mayor Connie, Kim, Misty, Tracy Bastion, Billy Morrow, Scott Sobey, and myself were present. Our brush piles at the landfill, my favorite topic. The South Dakota Department of Environmental and Natural Resources will meet on January 3rd, 2019 to determine who will be awarded grants. The city requested a grant of $70,000 to chip the brush piles. If our grant request is approved, the state will only award 20 to 30% of the requested total. The city's portion would then be $49,000 to $54,000. If the state doesn't award a grant to the city, there is still enough money in the solid waste fund to have the brush piles chipped. After the state DNR decides whom they will award grant money to, the council will need to decide how to proceed. The Public Works Committee is recommending the city go ahead and chip the brush pile, even if the state doesn't award the city any grant money. The Houston Sewer Avenue project, sewer pipe and manholes are in the ground, connected and covered up. The asphalt work for this project is scheduled to begin on November 3rd. Greg, are you out there? I didn't drive by today. Did they get your asphalt down? Everything's looking okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Hopefully that one's behind us, and thank you to everyone who supported getting that taken care of.
Amen.
Water and sewer rates that we've been talking about, suggested changes to both water and sewer ordinances are almost complete. I say almost complete because we're still waiting on you folks if you have any changes. So if you have any changes you would like to make to either ordinance, or you would like a hard copy of the ordinances, please let Kim know. The first reading for these ordinances is scheduled for November 19th council meeting. The city building roof repairs. Roof repairs are in progress at the Miller Center and wastewater treatment plant. The Evans pumping station work is complete, leaving only work for the city hall roof to begin. Bill had talked a little bit about the electric service panel at the airports. That's still an ongoing discussion in Public Works. New business. City crews have been working with Simon to finish patching, asphalt patching for streets, for sewer and water repair work that was done over the summer. Kim had talked with us about minimally used alleys and highway parking. She's been working with the DOT to identify minimally used alleys along Main Street that could be reconfigured with the hope of gaining some parking spaces that will be lost because of the Highway 385 reconstruction project. Ray, do you have any questions for us?
No, I don't.
Next Public Works meeting will be November 13th, 3 o'clock at City Hall.
Okay, thanks. Moving on, Southern Hills Economic Development, Martin.
There's been a lot going on with Southern Hills Economic Development, and so much so I am going to postpone the majority of these minutes until the November 19th meeting. We'll let you know that on October 19th, the board did meet and was visited by teaching staff and professors from Dakota Wesleyan University and SDSU, and the discussion revolved around aquaponics as well as geothermal greenhouses. There was a field trip to Edgemont, and I missed that portion, and hoped to go over some of the details more in depth with Andrew today, and we had to cancel, but I do promise to have all that information included in the minutes at the November 19th meeting, and then the next SHEDCO board meeting is November, I think it's November 25th, Friday, November 25th, this one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marty, and also want to thank you for the Southern Hills Economic Summit that was held for the Southern Hills area. I know Andrea had a big part in putting that together and some valuable discussions on housing, so we really appreciate that.
Absolutely, there's more details about that too. That was a great success. We had economic development members from neighboring communities in the Southern Hills, Hill City, Keystone, Custer as well, and did a tour of businesses in Hot Springs. Went very well.
Okay, thank you. As far as the golf course, obviously the season's winding down. Jason is looking at making some additional irrigation improvements, new pump and associated monitoring equipment with that, and as he gets that study done, maybe coming to council to ask for some additional, to spend some additional money in those areas. The greens are going soon to be covered. In the winter, we protect the greens by covering them with sand. That's a poor man's option. Some of the richer golf courses in the area have plastic covers that they put down, but we use sand, and that seems to work real well. Of course, I remind everyone we do live in the banana belt too. So, watering is actually dry enough that this past week Jason had to water, although we did get some precipitation this weekend, and quite soon he'll be blowing out the watering system to prepare it for winter. He also presented the committee with a tree removal plan. There are some trees that are growing that are going to become in play, protecting the greens more than they should, so those will have to be removed. And also along hole number 11, there's a considerable amount of trees that behind the hole we need to look at removing. that those trees keep the sun from shining down and keeping that green healthy. And so Jason is asking for some input on that. Other than that, we've had another successful summer at the golf course, and soon to be put to bed for the winter. Moving on, volunteer fire department, Ron.
Next meeting is 13th of November, 7 p.m. at Hot Springs Volunteer Fire Department.
In comprehensive plan, Sam?
No updates since last time.
Okay. Again, I want to thank all the council members, the work that you do on the committees. It takes a while to go through these reports, and I appreciate the effort you put into making thorough reports on all the things that do happen at the committee meetings. So thank you for the work that you put in to make these things come to pass. Moving on in our agenda, we have the second reading of ordinance 1193. This is the ordinance amending chapter 24A of the traffic regulations. I would accept a motion to approve the second reading of this ordinance.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading of ordinance 1193, an ordinance amending chapter 24-A traffic regulations.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the second reading. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Okay, again, a lot of hard work went into making this. It's been gone through a lot of reviews in committee, and I appreciate everyone's effort. Misty, I'd ask that you call the roll, please.
Arlene Kane,
Yes.
Ray Eckenby,
Yes.
Bill Lukens,
Yes.
Martin Meyer,
Yes.
Bob Nelson,
Yes.
Sam Powers,
Yes.
Ron Richards,
Yes.
Allison Ritterbush.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that ordinance is approved. Thank you all.
Mayor Cotty,
Yes.
if I may, now that the changes to the ordinance have been approved, I think it's a great opportunity for enforcing some of those changes, specifically when it comes to parking on city streets and campers and those kinds of things, to see an increase in getting that taken care of and addressing some of the concerns that the public has. Thank you for approving the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. And again, I believe it does provide a provision for the noise abatement of large trucks keeping their engine running and so forth, which I think was the original thing that preempted the ordinance. Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business. The first item is item A, which is the approving the plot. That's recommended approval by planning and zoning. This is not approving the land swap that we have talked about, but it's simply approving the plot. You do have a picture of that plot in your packages, and once this plot is approved, if it is, then the city administrator will work out the details for the land transfer with the Olstads on the Canton Avenue property. And Kim, do you think you should be able to get that done by the next council meeting? Okay. So I'd accept a motion to approve the replat as listed there in the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve a replat titled Track B1, Track B2, Track C revised, Track D revised, and public access and utility easement of Block 19, Stewart's Addition, to the town, now City of Hot Springs, Fall River County, South Dakota, dated October 24, 2018, and prepared by Anderson Engineering.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve that replat. Is there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, you have in your packages to approve a new position and job description for a city maintenance foreman. As you know, Billy Morrow serves as our maintenance superintendent, but we need a second in command, so to speak, and we don't have anyone on the organization chart to fill that position, or position actually, for that job. And so what you'll be doing is approving that position, and as Bob mentioned earlier, that would be open for city employees. We want to do an internal hire on that position. So I'd accept a motion to approve a new position and job description for city maintenance foreman.
I'll make a motion to approve a new position and job description for a city maintenance foreman in the streets maintenance department, and that only current city employees would be able to apply for the position.
Second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we include, that we approve that position, and added to that motion, not written on your agenda, that only city employees be considered for that position. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion?
The wage has a question mark next to it. I assume there's more discussion going on regarding the wage. How is that coming down?
We'll be setting the top of scale by resolution at the next council meeting.
Would that position be filled by anyone from any department within the city?
Could be if they wanted. The intention is not to add a new position to the maintenance department, just this new job description being filled potentially from somebody within that department.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, you have a list of liquor and retail wine license renewal applications. That list is in your packages also. I did check with Captain Wainman today. There are no issues with any of these in accordance with the police department. There's been no problems related with any of these licenses as far as problems in the facilities or illegal activities. So I would accept a motion to approve the transfer of these licenses.
Make a motion to approve the following liquor and retail wine license renewal applications. American Legion Post 71, Boulder Falls DBA State USA, Big Time Pizza, BW Gas and Convenience Retail LLC, doing business as Yes Way at number 1177, CS Inc. DBA Winter Circle, Consumer Corp. DBA Bourbon County, Dakota Mart Inc. DBA Lynn's Dakota Mart, Dolgan Midwest LLC, DBA Dollar General Store 18181, Frankie's Place Hanging J LLC, DBA Red Rock River Resort, Sunny's Superfoods, Southern Hills Golf Course, Springs Restaurant, Wind Shadow Enterprises LLC, DBA The Hot Springs Vault, and Woolies Western Grill.
Second that.
Okay, it's been moved and second to approve the following renewal applications. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion?
Just a comment. Thank you for reading that.
Hearing no other comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have before you item D is a possible motion and discussion to reconsider contract 2018-7, the use agreement for the Southern Hills Community Recreation Initiative that we approved at the October 15th council meeting, and their request to remove a fee of $100 per month to provide the facility to them for free of charge. I guess what I'd like to do is take this motion in two pieces. First of all, to initiate a motion to reconsider the contract and contract agreement, and that would open discussion on that, and then we will decide whether we actually do amend that contract.
I would make a motion to reconsider contract 2018-7 use agreement for Southern Hills Community Rec Initiative approved at the 10/15/18 council meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we reconsider this contract. And again, Allison, you are not conflicted to vote on this reconsideration motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, we had no one opposed, so the motion does carry. And moving on then to look at reconsidering, is there anyone here from the organization that would like to speak to why the council should reconsider and offer the use of the Mueller Center free of charge?
Hi, I'm Teresa Moore, President of Southern Hills Community Recreation Initiative. I'd like to have my board members and gymnastics instructors stand up. They're spread out throughout the facility here. So I'm going to make this short, but we rehashed out a lot of stuff earlier today in a different meeting. But we're a not-for-profit organization. We're working towards creating a community recreation center for all ages, and our hopes are to work in a partnership with the city to add on to a facility that you currently exists, that you currently own. At the last council meeting, Bob had asked a question at the very end, and I was sitting in the way back, so didn't stand up and run up here. But what sparked the re-conversation was Tim's answer, because it became clear to us that maybe more information was needed. We currently do not, currently the city can still make money when we're using the facility, because we've been told time and time again that we'll be removed from the premises or bumped if there's another activity or event going on. So currently the city can still make money. The equipment is there. We are there for 3 hours for only 11 days. Each morning on a Friday morning when the facility is already open, and people are walking, and sometimes there's walkers that go throughout the facility as well. So we've got that going on. And I don't know, so whether we pay the $400 or whether we get it free, we've been told that we're going to be bumped out of the facility while using it. Does that make sense? So anyways, if you have any questions, I know that, like I said, half of you were already at the meeting earlier today. So for those that weren't at the meeting, please go ahead and ask.
I think one of the questions that did come up at the meeting, but I think it's important for the other council members to know, what are your charges per student, and how many students will you have in the gymnastics class?
So currently, we charge anywhere from $120 to $180, and right now we don't have a number for this year, but last year our top number was 42. Previous to that, it was 37, I believe. And the reason we have to charge fees is because we only pay our instructors, and we also have insurance coverage for the equipment. Our insurance that we paid for last year was almost $1,200 for the last 2 years. So even though we only get to use it 11 days, we have to pay $1,200. And then we also have other expenses going along with that, of course. We make a donation to the school, and we pay insurance. There's 2 other things. Oh, USA Gymnastics training that we pay for our instructors. And then we give our board members a So is it okay if I say that our profits are about $2,000 to $3,000, and that goes towards our building fund? So we have a multi-million-dollar building project, and so that would be the funds that go towards that.
Okay. Are there any other questions that any of you might have?
I don't have any questions, I would have a comment. I think that it was definitely good to have more information in regards to this. And I know we worked last year to get what I think is a good deal for Southern Hills Community Rec Initiative, but I also think it's worth considering to donate it. And mainly based on the reputation, I think, of Southern Hills Community Rec. They've been around for 9 years. When the organization first began, I know my wife was actually involved on the ground floor, and there was a lot of really passionate people involved, and it's been continuing very strong for 9 years. And I know that the organization was responsible for the community engagement process, or helped to spearhead that. I went to some of those meetings; those were very exciting. So it does open up those opportunities. So for someone who knows more about the organization, I do see the value, not only to Hot Springs, but also to the children and the families of those who participate. And I think it's important, again, just to look at specifics, that the program does not curtail the Mueller Center's ability to rent at a full rate. And whether it is being rented or whether it's being donated to them, if something else comes in at a full rate, they've agreed to move the equipment out and to help as well, if there's help needed for that. Something else I guess is worth mentioning is, I know Kathy had mentioned before doing some sort of winter rec, and this is sort of along those lines, and I know there was a lot of support for that at the time, and just having something else that's going on in the winter time, I think this is at least a start for something like that. And I like to see the city not look at these as an obligation, but more as an opportunity, that we work with groups that have a proven track record of what it is that they're trying to accomplish for Hot Springs. So,
I'd like to add also that
Step up to the mic.
and please tell us your name.
My name is Christine Richardson. I'm Lost Pollard. I was just hired by Southern Hills Recreational Gymnastics Committee to coach gymnastics, and I have about 35 years coaching experience. So I come from Illinois originally, where I was a competitive gymnast and coached for all different levels of kids, including college. And so I have a pretty wide background as far as professional gymnastics goes. And my recent move was from Custer, South Dakota. I ran the gymnastics YMCA program for 3 years there. And a lot of the parents were very impressed, and they want to bring their kids down here for this program. So I've been telling them about the full gymnastics because I just had mats for the YMCA. I didn't have the full equipment, which is a really big positive benefit for this community of the size that it is. And people from Custer are really interested, but they're a little bit scared of the cost with the drive. The $180 is for November, December, January, and February, but there are only 11 weeks. So when you look at that cost, it's a little bit of a burden for some parents to have that cost plus the drive. So I'm just telling you from my perspective, if we don't have such a high cost, that they would be able to afford the drive. And I think that we would get a lot more Custer students involved because a lot of them are driving to Rapid City for gymnastics programs. And we could really build this program with my knowledge and with Denise and all the other coaches. They have some really good coaching staff. Thank you. Any other questions?
So all of the students that would be in the program aren't necessarily from Hot Springs. They would be from,
Right, this year, we have some Custer ones that are following Christie down, but otherwise, in the years past, they have been done mostly from the Fall River area. Yeah, so, and this year, like I said, our registration ends here tomorrow, and right now our numbers are down. Currently, we have 23 students. So, I'm hoping that in the next day or two, I get more applications, but currently it's half of what it was last year.
okay. Well, I think, again, there's a lot of discussion on this. I appreciate your being at the admin and finance meeting today, and also the program has a great reputation in training young gymnasts, and I know that that's an important aspect of development. We do have some issues, though, that I think the council needs to be aware of, that we have made it a policy to ensure that all of our facilities do generate some income in supporting these activities. And by giving one nonprofit that does a lot of good for the community, then what's good for one then becomes an open gate for all. And suddenly the Mueller Civic Center becomes a nonprofit where we aren't generating income to be able to pay our people. And I think that does concern me a bit. It appears from the rates that you charge and so forth that this $100 per month charge is not excessive. In fact, it's a reduced charge that has been made according to our manager, Chris Cathy. And so I'm just saying, if the council did vote to offer the contract as it was approved before, the question I would have, would you have to cancel your program?
Well, currently, we wouldn't have to cancel the program, although if we continue to only get 23, 25 kids, then we would have to consider not having a program next year. Because then our expenses outweigh, you know.
But then also the interest would be due, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, like Christy said, they feel like the prices are a little high, although we're comparing our prices to Rapid, and it's a fraction of the cost of the Rapid City. And there, like I said earlier in today's meeting, many people drive to Rapid for gymnastics. And that's what Custer people are doing, that's what Hot Springs people are doing. And so we're bringing it here so they don't have to drive to Rapid and spend their money there. Although, with all the added costs and the excessive insurance costs, you know, then we do have to charge more. And because we have a multi-million-dollar building that we're looking at providing for the city, you know, therefore we have to make a little bit, otherwise there's no point in continuing to, well, the point is to provide for the children, but we would just be breaking even, and so therefore the program wouldn't be successful. Does that make sense? It would be successful in providing something for the kids to do, and it would be successful in providing services to the high school and middle school gymnastics team, you know, so that the kids improve on that, although it wouldn't be a fundraiser, you know. And earlier today, you know, I mentioned that these are funds that have been going towards our building fund. So in that way, then we'd have to re-brainstorm what we could do as a large fundraiser in order to get a couple $1,000s to succeed in our ultimate long-term goal. And if we have the facility, then we can provide more services for the community, not just gymnastics, but the indoor walking track, the lap swimming pool, the things that the community members have said that they would like to see in our area.
But that facility is a $7 million to $15 million you shared today.
Yeah.
And $400 is not going to go very far in reaching that goal, along with even a couple of $1,000. So,
And I guess the way that we're looking at it is every little penny counts. You know, I mean, because we don't have people, you know, stepping out of the woodwork to write checks. Every
Yeah.
little penny counts, and we're hoping to do this for the city to make your, you know, buildings even better. Ultimately, that would be an ideal thing so that this building can grow as well. And that's not a definite, you know, but it would provide a lot for our community if we could expand those services for all ages, not just for the youth. And that's what our organization is about, not just recreation for the youth, but for every age in this community.
thank you. Are there any other comments, questions from, I know, Bob, you were there at the meeting today.
Yeah, I have comments, questions. I'm all over the place with this. Really depends on what part of the conversation we're in, whether I'm for it, whether I'm against it. First thing I want to do is commend Chris. Part of the conversation was, you know, are we micromanaging? Are we providing oversight? To me, micromanaging is questioning every decision that's made. This is the first one that I've questioned along these lines. So I see it more as oversight, and I think that's what the council is here to do. But Chris is doing exactly what the city has asked him to do, is to make recommendations on how he feels the Mueller Center should best be utilized and what the costs associated are with that. So I want to commend him and thank him for doing that. Whether I agree with those recommendations, that's another conversation. It's been discussed that the swim team versus Southern Hills, you folks, is a different conversation. That's the Evans Plunge is an enterprise fund. The Miller Center is here to make, is looked at differently. I'm not sure that the general public understands that or would care.
It seems to be the question that continuously comes up.
And, yeah, what I do struggle with is that if we allow one nonprofit to use the facility, that, as the mayor said, that opens the door for other nonprofits. And how do we identify that? We've already put ourselves in a similar situation with the farmers market, when we allowed them reduced fees for using Centennial Park. And Marty and I have been looking at how we might identify that going forward so that the city staff would understand what fees to charge to what different groups. So it does open that door. Do we do a case-by-case basis, and then does the council find themselves addressing this once a month, a couple times a month for any nonprofits that come through? But what I really come back to is the first question that I had asked, first time that I voted on this and the last time, is, in my mind, is the swim team and us allowing them to use Evans Plunge different from allowing you folks to use this? I certainly don't want to get into the conversation of, well, if we charge you folks, if we're going to be fair, then we need to start charging them. I'm not in support of that. So I'm still conflicted and troubled with the city charging you folks for use of the facility. I think the swim team and you folks should be looked at the same.
And I just wanted to point out that I only see one difference, you know, I mean, I have kids on swim team too. So, but I only see one difference with the swim team, with the soccer team, which, you know, I mean, you mow those soccer fields, you spend hours and hours and money, you know, to pay somebody to do that. But the difference between our organization and other organizations is all of our money is going back into the city to create and build something here. Whereas
I don't think that's a fair comment, because some of the other organizations that use this facility do everything for the city, and their benefit is solely for the city and not for Broward County, so do not make that statement.
No, she was saying the difference between the swim team and
I'm saying
SHRC.
for the
Yeah, she was
youth, the
bringing
youth
two
activities, I should clarify, the youth activities, the two examples I gave, which was the swim team and the soccer, program, is that the funds that they charge go back into those programs only, go back and into our children of the community, of course, but into those programs. Okay, so, sorry I upset you, George. I wasn't trying to, that was not my intent. My intent was just to compare us to other youth programs.
Who will run this multi-million-dollar facility, and where are your plans to have it located? And how close are you after 9 years to getting there?
Yeah, we've gotten closer in the last couple of years, but as I explained earlier, that a lot of the grant funding that we need to get depends on if we have matching funds.
Would that pay for operations? Because we have a facility here, we're talking about giving away its usage. How would we pay for this new facility?
Currently, our organization is still working with all those details. The city hasn't committed to anything. It's all just brainstorming right now. And who would run a multi-million-dollar facility? Well, of course, every facility has a manager. And so you pay a director to run a recreation facility.
Here too.
Right, exactly. Exactly, yeah. So whatever we do, we still have to hire somebody. And if we use the city structure, then we'd have to decide amongst each other as to what to do, and who is going to run that.
And I think to address what you said, Misty, too, I guess that's what communities have vision funds for. I know some of them take quite a while, and then it's just a matter of whether the community really supports it and believes in that and has that vision solidly in their sights and pursues it. So yeah, that's, maybe that's the question here, is how much the city government wants to support that type of vision. And I know cities like Newcastle, Belfouche has a rec center, don't they?
Yeah, Belfouche, Sturgis, and Newcastle.
Yeah, they're beautiful, and they serve the community and they benefit the community. So it might take a while, but also just to address quickly what George said, I think when it comes to looking at this situation and comparing it with other nonprofits, I guess the difference too, for me looking at it, is that you have a situation where the circumstances are a unique set of circumstances that just create this opportunity in general because the school has the equipment.
Right, and that's the
because
only
you guys are working with the school. So I think it's important to understand that as well. So it's not going to be the exact same circumstances for every nonprofit. If they decide they're going to come here and they want to rent a room for a meeting, that's maybe not the same thing as you guys trying to take advantage of a situation where the equipment is there because the school is storing it there and trying to work with the Mueller Center. So I think that sort of sets it apart a little bit because of those circumstances.
One more thing just to add to that. I think I see some of the barrier to this is that this recreation group is really hoping to team with the city, but the city hasn't really completely bought into that we have a public-private partnership here. But that's really what they're trying to extend themselves to, is saying that we have something that we would really like to help with the city to expand and give some of the areas that they had to address that the community wanted. And so I see that as a barrier, that why we keep having this conversation, that's not necessarily just nonprofit or not nonprofit, but yet a group that's looking to try to be work with the city specifically to add to facilities that would help add to the community.
If I may speak as counselor at this moment. Kim, can you correct me if I'm wrong? At the last meeting, didn't you say the big distinction was kind of like labor costs was set up and like if their equipment had to be moved, it was Mueller Center employees who were moving the equipment?
No, we weren't moving the equipment, but it caused us extra time to clean up after and clean up the chalk and get ready for whatever facilities that we have going on. Plus, there's extra costs associated with our energy and all those things of cleaning up locker rooms and stuff like that after having children here.
So just to make the distinction, it's more of a labor cost, which would be associated with the swim team, you know, at the Evans Plunge.
Yeah.
So,
The cost isn't associated with our group, it's with the school equipment being in there. So the school uses it on a daily basis. We use it for 3 hours on Friday morning. So the cleanup cost is after the equipment needs to be moved, the floors need to be done. But that has to be done whether we're there or not.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from members of the council? Bill, you were attending the meeting.
Yeah, and I agree with Bob. It was a long discussion, it was an informative discussion, it was a confusing discussion. It's hard to come and find a place where, okay, what's really my opinion, where do I land on this? And where I personally ended up is that this is a city facility. If we took the time to quantify the indirect costs, we'd probably blow way past the $400. But I think there are indirect costs. There's some direct costs on what Chris and his team, you know, it impacts their workday. I also understand, you know, the things that this community offers the young people. Where I grew up, that was absolutely non-existent. And so, if it sounds like I'm being negative towards the organization, I'm not. This is a tough place. It's my first year on the council, and so you sit and you try to be responsible for what the council is fiscally responsible for, yet you represent, even though we didn't have an election, you represent the people and say, okay, where does that land? Based on everything I've heard today, the fact that, yes, the city is asking for some financial support for the use of the facility, but it is much less than would normally be charged. To me, that seems reasonable. So if we come to a vote, I guess where I've landed is to support the contract that we approved at the last meeting. And again, that's not a slam to you guys at all. I personally, my wife and I have a nonprofit, and heavy on the non. I'm treasurer, secretary treasurer for 2 other nonprofits, so I understand that you actually start naming the pennies and say goodbye to them. So I understand the budgetary issues that you're facing. Also looking at the budgetary issues and that we face here in the city, and every little bit matters to you, and every little bit really does manage on our budget. So that's a lot of babbling to say that's kind of where I landed after the 65-minute discussion we had this afternoon, as well as what we've had here tonight.
Well, thank you for listening.
Any other?
Can I say one more thing? I'm just listening.
Please come to the mic so that everyone can hear. Thank you.
I'm just listening to all this, and I'm just thinking about how many places I've lived. I've not grown up here. I'm not from this area. I'm not from South Dakota. I'm from Illinois. So I've also lived in Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, Custer, Rapid City, Hot Springs. So I've been to a few places. And Western South Dakota can be a big disappointment at times. And I'm speaking from a parent standpoint of view and from a young professional, because I have a business. And one of the reasons I heavily weighed upon moving here was the high school gymnastics program. To me, that's a thing of the past. Everybody else is getting rid of it. So it's a great asset. And it really made me think about moving here. And when talking to Therese about what was going on with her nonprofit organization, I'm on board with it 140%. But if it goes away because there's not city funding or there's not collaboration with the city, that's what I feel Western South Dakota's biggest weakness is. That they're not moving in progression and they're not providing things for new people to come in with 3 children, with activities, with young professionals that want something to do. There's not a recreational facility here. That's a big downfall. That's me talking from a completely, I'm not talking about the gymnastics, I'm talking about a facility that's really neat and sets this area apart. And I actually had people from Custer say, I wish Custer would do something like that. I wish we had a program like that. I've heard that many, many times. And so I just think that that should be considered when you're making a decision whether you're going to support somebody that has put 9 years into something in a program that could benefit all ages, not just gymnastics, but it could benefit the adults of the community, the young adults, the children. It's a pretty positive thing. And it really does make people think whether they want to live here or not. So I just wanted you to think about that.
Are you aware that the regular rental fee for the facility would be closer to $1,500 to $2,000? That we are working with this organization with a significantly reduced rate already. And we do have other facilities that provide recreation that the city and our taxpayers support already in our community.
So what I would say to that is that I appreciate the $400 because that is a much reduced price, and I think that's a wonderful thing. It's a good start. But if we're getting bumped all the time, that's a big problem because she had put out a schedule, and I sent it to a few parents in Custer, and some of them showed up last week, but we got bumped because of wine and dates or something that was going on. So she's constantly having to change the schedule. That's an issue as well, because if people go, wait a minute, there's only one Friday in November and 2 in December, but we might get bumped on one of those, and we might have to change it again. People are like, no, it's all over the place. I want a consistent schedule.
We have that agreement with the high school though for the gymnastics program, which you are on the back of. So that's an agreement we have worked out with them for our joint use of their facilities and ours. So whether or not you pay, that can still happen.
I understand. I'm just saying that the consistency is an issue, and I realize that the Mueller Center is being used for multiple uses, but that would be consideration of maybe how many hours they're getting when you're looking at the cost and how many hours we're able to run our program. And it's also probably affecting the enrollment. Thank you.
That's why we need another gym, so that the equipment can just stay there, right? All right, thank you very much.
Any other comments from council?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. I wasn't at this meeting, but I was in on this conversation on the last council meeting. And I concur with everything that everybody's saying here. And it's hard to be positive because we are put in the middle between a rock and a hard place here. And that's a hard decision for all of us council people to make on these kind of situations because we love our kids, we love our young people, and we try to do the best we can with how we can and when we can, and do the best we can to make this a better community. So having said that, these are kind of the positions that I don't like to be in, but then again, I concur with our mayor in stating that this is a city facility and somebody has to pay for the operation and maintenance of this facility, and that is the taxpayer. And these taxpayers is who we represent, and we need to keep their costs down. So I just wanted to make that comment and say I appreciate everything you guys are doing. But when it comes to making a decision, I have a tendency to agree with our mayor, and we need to not give these services away. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Okay, if not, I would then ask for a motion as to whether we would go ahead and request to amend the contract to remove the fee of $100 per month and provide facility for SHCRI free of charge. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to request to amend the contract to remove a fee of $100 per month to provide facility use to SHCR free of charge.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded to request to amend this contract 2018-7 to remove the fee of $100 per month and provide the facility free of charge. Is there any further discussion?
I'd like to just say something. Should this go to a positive vote to remove the costs associated with this contract, I will be asking the council to create a policy that our facility manager will be able to operate under, so that he can tell which nonprofits will get free of charge and which ones will not. So that it's going to be something that he can then use as a method of whenever people come in and they want to have events or use the facility, he'll have a direction from the council on exactly how he should be handling this.
Any other comments? Questions? Okay, I would ask Misty if you would call the roll, and I'd remind the council that a yes vote then is to remove the $100 charge per month and offer the facility for free. A no vote would be leaving the contract as it is. Is that understood? Okay.
Yes.
Misty, would you call the roll, please?
Arlene Kane,
No.
Ray Eckerty,
No.
Bill Lukens,
No.
Mark Meyer,
Yes.
Bob Nelson,
Yes.
Sam Powers,
No.
Ron Richards.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, it appears that motion has failed, and the charge will be $100 per month. And again, we certainly support the program. I hope you understand the difficulty that each of the council has gone through in making that decision. And thank you very much for being here and presenting your arguments. Moving on, item E. We do have a grant policy in your packages. We need to identify some procedures and accounting for the grant money that we do get. Different grant funding sources have different requirements to track, and our grant policy documents that for the use of accepting grants for the city of Hot Springs and allowing giving grants also. So I'd accept a motion to approve the grant policy that's in your packages.
I'll make a motion to approve the City of Hot Springs grant policy.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the grant policy. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a motion and discussion to authorize the finance officer to release $5,870 that's been held in a capital improvement fund, and this is to pay, to help cover costs for the Centennial Park stage construction. My understanding, the Fisher and Donnell families have donations that they gave for the construction of that stage. The Rotary is the civic organization in town that did put that together at a significant cost of around $18,000, $18,500. So what we're doing is authorizing that $5,870 to go against the total cost of that stage construction to help the Rotary defray some of their costs.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize finance officer to release the $5,870 held in the 501 Capital Improvement Fund restricted for the covered stage in Centennial Park to the Hot Springs Rotary Club.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we authorize that funds transfer. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion?
I have one question. I may have been looking at the wrong line on the finance report, but I thought I saw in the capital improvement fund $4,745.90. Was I looking in the wrong place?
Yeah, you must have been, because not just these funds, but other funds are held in there as well.
So all of that's there?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item G, we have a possible motion and discussion to approve automatic budget supplement of $663 to the general fund. And I believe that we've gotten some insurance money to help pay for some damage and repair the wall out at Chautauqua Park. I'd accept a motion to make that fund transfer.
I'll make a motion to approve an automatic budget supplement of $663 to the general fund, Parks Department 101-45200-42900, other current expense, for the repair of damage done to a decorative wall at Chautauqua Park, revenue received from Geico insurance claim ending in 1012.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve that budget supplement. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Misty, again, appreciate your diligence in tracking down these insurance companies and people that damage our city property and getting payment. We also have item H. You have a picture and a discussion in your packages about the possibility of surplusing 6 animal cages that we're no longer using to house feral cats, and we'd like to put those on the get those declared as surplus.
Sorry, we're just
You're
counting
them,
and there's actually 8 of them.
There are 8?
Said 6, but there's 8.
Okay, maybe we better amend that motion then if you do make it to 8. Sure not one of us at duplex or a couple of them.
I make a motion to surplus, we're changing it to 8.
Yes.
8 animal cages no longer in use by the animal control officer, and approve the sale of such cages by either public auction or sealed bid.
Second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we do surplus those animal cages. Any questions, comments, or discussion?
Is there any preference on if you prefer we sell those at public auction or sealed bid? I explained the difference between the two. We don't have an auction scheduled, but have been approached by the school to have a joint public auction in May of 2019 after school lets out. So do you have any preference on which way we sell them?
I don't.
I think there's probably like 2 people that would put a bid in.
If there's already an auction going off, that might be easiest.
And once we get them surplus, there's no time limit, is there, as to when we do get rid of them. So at least we're making that decision tonight, and we'll,
It'll come back before you. If we do take sealed bids, you'll have to approve the bid that is accepted. So it'll come back for you, and you can reject that and decide to sell it at public auction if you think you'd be better that way.
and also, if we do decide to go for public auction, you as council will be notified. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have 8 animal cages surplus. We have a temporary alcoholic beverage application from Winter Circle to serve alcohol at the Ag Banquet held here November 17th. I'd accept a motion to approve that temporary alcohol beverage license. The Winter Circle will be using ID cards to determine the appropriate age of those that are wanting to consume alcohol.
Make a motion to approve temporary alcohol beverage license application from CS Incorporated, DBA Winter Circle, to be used at 801 South 6th Street for the Ag Banquet on 11/17/2018.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We make that temporary alcoholic beverage license. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We have on the agenda a travel request for Officer Zach Schaefer to attend a armorer's course in Pierce, South Dakota, so that he was qualified to care for our Glock weapons.
I'll make a motion to approve a travel request from Police Officer Zachary Schaefer to attend the Glock Armorers Course in Pierre, South Dakota from 3/13/2019 to 3/14/2019.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve this travel request. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, Misty, can you give us the Finance Officer report, please?
Yes, I looked and saw where you came up with $4,400. That was the beginning balance for the year in that fund. The current balance is $9,245. It makes sense. I'm glad you looked there to find it. In your council packets, you have the November 5th Finance Officer report. Included with the memo are the financial reports through the end of October. The reports you'll see are the year-to-date profit and loss summary report for each of our funds. Point out that red is the general fund. That's the result of the $420,000 we approved earlier to transfer to our additional sales tax fund to save for the lighting in the 212. So if we didn't have that $420,000 transfer out, we would have a gain of about $200,000 year to date in that general fund instead of the loss of about $284,000. Most of the other funds are showing gains. The additional sales tax fund, if we didn't have that $420,000 transfer in, it wouldn't be a $500,000 gain year to date. So just remember those as you're looking at these. The only fund right now that's showing a loss is the golf course fund, but we have not done our appropriated transfer in yet for the year, so we won't let them finish the year in a negative cash balance. There's a fund summary report that kind of shows you where we're at compared to our budget. We'll be working on the last supplemental appropriation ordinance for the year at the next meeting. The cash balances, the reports will show you both the Wells Fargo, which is our main checking account, the balance in that at the end of October by fund. So if you're interested in knowing the cash balance in a specific fund, you can find that on that report. On the back page is our Bank of the West checking account, which we only use to park some water and wastewater money at this time. And then the last report you have is the investment report. That's by institution, which is approved at the beginning of the year by council, where we can put the monies of the cities at, and then also by investment type. This report includes all cash assets of the city, so it also includes some debt service reserve money, some money restricted by state law, like our cemetery perpetual care money, some CDs that we use as investments for our water and wastewater loans as debt service, and also those 2 checking accounts that you see cash balance reports on. And one of the things Bob mentioned in his admin finance report is I'm beginning to look at the rising short-term rates. CDs, for the first time in a number of years, are actually paying for short-term rates halfway decent. We're looking at about 12 months as an average and around 2 to 2.25% of a return, the possibility for that type of return on some of our city money. And we'll be looking for a recommendation at the next council meeting to approve some transferring of those idle funds, we call them idle funds, but funds that are either restricted for debt service or restricted by law to potentially gain some additional interest income on them since the short-term rates have risen. Thank you for approving the grant policy. I know that I think August I said I'd have one for you to approve, and then September I said I'd have one for you to approve, and got a little writer's block around the requirement the federal government to inflict the actual penalties in writing for violations of conflict of interest. So with some help from all kinds of folks, we got past that writer's block and now have a grant policy that will hopefully eliminate the audit findings that we had last year related to our single audit. You did approve the city ordinance codification project. We got all the stuff out to the attorney that's the legal staff attorney at American Legal, and then you just approved another ordinance tonight that now I have to forward him because that changes. We'll be doing that with our water and wastewater ordinances too, so as they're reviewing them, we're throwing new stuff at them, but they are getting started, and they've been a pleasure to work with so far. They're professional. They will review all of our ordinance and make minor changes, but they won't change any of the wording or any of the legal impact of our ordinances without first visiting with the council. The files have been turned over to their editing department to reorganize our code sections using their standard organization and numbering system. And so excited to see what comes of this, and I think it will create something that's easier for our community to use on our website, and also council members as they are interested in finding out more about specific city ordinances. I've talked a little bit about the water and wastewater ordinances. Sounds like several committees are still reviewing and going through those, and the first reading will be on our next council agenda. We didn't just revise the rates. We took the opportunity as we were revising those to sit down with all dedicated city employees and get other feedback as well. So please ask any questions if you have it, and if you see anything, even minor typographical or clerical errors, please point them out, because after looking through them for hours and hours, it always seems like you missed something silly, like the number on a resolution or something. So it's a lot of reading, but it does help educate all of us as to the utilities structure and the things that they have to make rules around. And so it's more than just a rate change. So please be sure to review it. With the last supplemental appropriation ordinance of the year, I have reached out to the department heads requesting their inputs regarding their budget. I want to remind the council of the additional appropriations we've already discussed. Our snow removal budget will need some additional funding. Our legal department budget, our rabies and animal control related to our dog bite case, that added to our legal fees as well. We did have some departments that received scholarships, so we'll be adding the additional cash to their budget to pay for the expenses related to their travel. We had 2 of those. The covered stage that you approved tonight will need to be appropriated because we did not budget for that expense, although we do have the cash available for it. The asphalt zipper purchase, which affected streets, water, and wastewater. The library grants and donations. Our group insurance rates for most of our departments that have employees that receive health insurance through the city due to the 22% increase we saw mid-year this year in our health insurance rates. And then that $420,000 are all items that we've approved, we've discussed, but you'll be seeing on the supplemental appropriation ordinance. For our newer council members, a few years ago, our council approved the forgiveness, the initial charge, and then the forgiveness of all water and sewer usage charges for city departments. In order to accurately account for that usage, the generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP, require that we do at least acknowledge the expense and the revenue related to it to the funds that are affected. But our council also then passed the forgiveness. So you'll see water and sewer on the supplemental appropriation ordinance for all the departments within the city and functions that use those services. Contingency transfers can be done by resolution. So we have a bit more time to address any additional appropriations that may be needed for the remaining budget for the year with our contingency fund. We have about $36,000 in our contingency fund left over, but the following items have already been approved by the council to be transferred, but the resolution hasn't been done yet. That's our email server upgrade, which we still haven't been billed for from Black Hills Technology, but we've had in place since about August. That's about $3,800. And the ordinance codification, which initially was about $72, but going to the dual column, we got that down to $6,800. Also, discussion, the need for a new electrical panel at the airport. You heard that in both the airport and the Public Safety Committee reports. We're looking at a cost around $6,800, but that was my understanding is for the 100-watt panel, so the 200-watt panel may be a little bit more. So those are all items that we have been discussing to come out of contingency. Oh, and the balance is $39,500. So we have a little more time to address any other emergencies if we don't get them in the supplemental appropriation ordinance. We're working to get our reimbursement for the Vineyard fire expenses. I've been lucky enough to work with someone from the state who has worked with FEMA before. At this time, we're looking at about $3,150, but we are currently awaiting additional information from a couple of her guys regarding the drafting of water from city hydrants. And there may be a reimbursement for that expense as well. And the last note on your memo is about our unemployment insurance rate. For 2019, our rate decreased to 0.57%. It was at 0.72%. The fees are charged on the first $15,000 of wages earned by employees, and the rate is based on the length of time we've been an employer, our past taxable payroll, and past charges and credits to our experience rating account related to unemployment insurance. So when everything goes up, it's nice to hear that sometimes things go down just a little bit too. That's all I have on my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, comment?
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. On the codification project in the city, have they said, how many months we have to give them updates? And, do we have 2 months, 3 months before?
We'll have an agreement with them ongoing for any updates, and it'll be every 6 months that we would, so after we get this done the first time, if we have changes every 6 months, they'll go in and update.
Okay, but for the ones that we know we've got coming, we'll get those to them in enough time to, and then on the contingency transfers, it looks like we may not be spending it, but the council did approve $4,000 out of this year for equipment for the officers. Is that part of the calculation that you have here, is setting aside that $4,000?
Nope, they'll have to request that. And at this time, he hasn't requested needing any additional funding, hasn't spent any additional money on that. So we're not just going to put it there.
Right, but looking at what expenditures might come out of contingency, we did set aside $4,000.
And we do have until the first or second meeting in December to pass that contingency transfer resolution. So if something changes, and I did ask all the department heads to be sure to let me know.
Thank you.
Hopefully he'll do that.
Okay, thanks. Kim?
Well, since the last meeting that we had, I feel like I've just done a lot of reworking, reviewing, going back over things. Everything from the cantilever sidewalk, where we're getting some better numbers in, and some identification of possible design criteria that we can use. We've been doing a lot of meeting with local people. George has been meeting with different business people and hearing from different organizations, getting their input. And we're getting kind of mixed signals from the community on how we should go forward with this. So we're really kind of taking everything down to brass tacks and giving it a real hard look on what exactly we can do with this road highway project and the legacy that we leave for the next 50-plus years. So we're really trying to balance everything. And the numbers that we finally got today, I think will help us get that aligned better. So we're continuing to work with the DOT as we work with them, things from parking counts, looking at little used alleys, getting the background on that, looking at which light poles are going to get wayfinding signs, looking at all the minutia now that we're going to be dealing with. We're still working together, Tracy and I, on giving them plans for where we'd like to modify our water and sewer so that they can add that into the project, as well as areas that we've been able to negotiate with them. If we have X number of square feet of colored concrete or patterned concrete, how many square foot do we get in the new plan? You know, those kind of things. So we've been trying to leverage those numbers so that we can add those to the plan, and they need to get that information from us by the end of the year. So Tracy and I are working closely on that. We've also been working on some of the old favorites, like the access drive to the water tower. We've been working on this restoration of disturbed areas there. Working on the Canton lots. Thank you very much for approving the replat. That obviously then will open up a lot of things to happen now for the RFP for the Canton properties, as well as negotiating the swap, getting a draft to you by the next meeting so that you can really get a handle on what that looks like. I've also been working with Chris at Evans Plunge, the director. The Wellness Aquatic director position has become an albatross. We've hired and offered it to 2 different people that were very, very good candidates, and one turned it down at the last minute because she got a local position offered to her in Texas. Another one probably shouldn't have applied for it, but she was very well appropriate for it, but she just doesn't have a car, she doesn't have any money, she can't get here. So we are retooling our method of finding the right person, and we're re-identifying who that right person could be. So we'll be coming to the Evans Plunge Advisory Board with some of our ideas on where to go from this point. But this has been now, since September, we've been without somebody, which is not too long, but we need to get somebody in place and functioning by the time May rolls around, when people start coming to visit us. We've been looking to review with the department heads end-of-year procedures and our department goals, some of the things that we'd like to get taken care of as we get the roof project done at the wastewater plant. We need to replace all the ceiling tiles and the drop ceilings that are covered in mold. No sense in doing that while the roof is leaking. Now that it's not leaking, it's time to get that mold out of there and start making this a healthier environment. Similar things with the street department. They had no time to really purchase the things that they had on their to-do list. Now that things are kind of slowing down a little bit as far as street maintenance, concrete work, hot asphalt patching, all the things that you heard from the Public Works meeting, they just need to start getting some of their materials together for their winter projects. And we're trying to do that sooner than later so that Misty has pretty much all of December without a lot of new purchases coming through, so she can tie that up at the end of the year. So we're trying to be a little bit proactive to help in the rear end of things. Of course, we're still looking at the airport zoning. The end of the year is always Evans Plunge and Southern Hills Golf Course prepping for the 2019 tourist campaigns. Everybody and their brother is coming up with what I need to do to make sure that we get the right press out there, and trying to go through all the different things that, whether it's website hosting, pop-up ads, geofencing, tourist booklets, newspapers, any number of things can pop up. So we have to really kind of ferret through there and figure out what would be the best for each facility and is the best value. So we've been working on that. I know George and our department heads have been really working hard on getting that right. I've been also meeting with the Wellness Committee. I know Marty's been meeting with me with them as well. They're very interested in creating a policy, a written policy towards the city to start as a leader in our community about herbicide and pesticide use. You talk a great deal about that. In general, since I've been the city administrator, we've been really trying to cut down on the amount of chemical use. We've been trying to find more holistic methods of herbicide management, weed management, pest management. And a lot of those things we've just done on our own because they're the best things to do. They're wanting us to look at a policy. So I've been trying to guide them in a way of how to go through the business of writing policies, or if they're interested in ordinances or stuff like that. I've been looking at trying to get them to not look at an ordinance, to look more as a policy, and why to do that and how to do that. Today they met with Jason Happy, who in most towns, the golf course manager is the last person you'd want to talk to about not using herbicide and pesticides, but we are lucky enough that our golf course superintendent is probably the best at lessening herbicide and pesticide use. So he's acting as a role model for kind of how they could go forward with this initiative. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that that might be coming through and what that might look like. As it starts gaining form, I'll keep you posted on that. Like Misty said, we have been working on the wastewater and water ordinances. Again, if you have any questions, comments, send it to me or to Misty. If you need something, if you're just an old school person and you want it in paper, let us know, we can do that too. And based on the water and wastewater ordinances, just like Misty said, we do have some ordinance fee changes. And those fee changes were the minimum that we were required to meet the DNR requirements so that we can start getting the ability to get funding for grants and low interest loans. But we'll be doing that as you go through the winter season. You'll be looking at that more as we look through all of our fees. It's our responsibility to manage the city as best we can and to keep up with the costs of business. And things like we want to increase, here's the balancing point, we want to increase development and business use in the community, but yet our building permits have not been increased since 2007. So we're really like almost a super bargain under that realm throughout the back hills. Everybody just laughs whenever you talk about what we charge for a building permit. So there is room to grow there without stifling your building and your development. So those are the things that we'll be looking at. So as you see these ordinances coming across with these changes, it's just trying to do best business and to manage the city's funds as best we can for the taxpayers. And I think one last thing I wanted to talk about, we saw today, we were talking about the appropriations for the asphalt zipper. If you'd seen any of the guys around doing hot patch work, that asphalt zipper has saved so much time. It's great to buy a piece of equipment that nobody has anything negative to say about it. And everybody's super excited to see it working. So if you ever get to see somebody out there that's got this crazy front end loader with this crazy box on the front, stop and watch it a bit, and then you can go around telling everybody you saw the zipper at work. So.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Appreciate it. And just several things that I'd like to touch on in my report. First of all, probably most importantly, we got a letter from the South Dakota DOT concerning the update on the highway reconstruction. And their proposal that they want us as a city to formally agree on, and it will be coming before the council at our next meeting. after it goes through Public Works, is that they're going to put an overlay rather than the full reconstruction of River Street from Jennings to Minnetonka. That is to accommodate us to be able to have a design for a cantilever sidewalk. And they want that decision, like I said, by the 20th of November. In doing that, the parking will remain the same. That overlay would last about 6 to 10 years, depending on the traffic and how solid the underlay is. It won't change the parking scheme. The diagonal parking will still be on the river side of the street, and parallel parking on the sidewalk side, which will allow the sidewalks. One of the big concerns of the design they presented to us was the reduction in the width of the sidewalks near the businesses on River Street, that those would stay the same. But unfortunately also, the flood wall, many different types of railings, lack of lighting, and so forth would not be a part of that overlay project. I'm very disappointed. It's kind of like we feel like we've got a gun held to our back. I think it takes the pressure off of DOT to have to fund a sidewalk that they should provide in an urban area. And certainly the safe answer to that is a cantilever. We've been working, and I thank Kim for getting some information. We just got some today. It looks like composite material would reduce the infrastructure of the cantilevers themselves, and we got some costs on that. It would be about a $1.2 million cost just for the decking, and looks like I would estimate, upwards of $1 million, $1.5 million for the infrastructure. We put 70 beams, short beams, out in that would support that. It's interesting. Did attend a meeting last night where Representative Noem was there. I was in Rapid City, so she didn't have to mention anything about Hot Springs, but she did. And she mentioned that she wants to make Hot Springs a National Veterans Town. I think one way that we can help her do that and give something special is create a veterans walk and a walkway, and maybe that can be our cantilever sidewalk and help with that effort. We've also had a contractor today express some interest in helping us clean out the river and doing the work to redo the course of that. So that's exciting, and he was very excited about the things that we're planning on doing. So there's a lot of discussions that have to go on in the next few days and weeks as to whether and how we answer that DOT letter. And obviously, you as a council will be making that final decision as to what we agree to do. Obviously, we would love to see that whole stretch reconstructed safely and meeting all of our needs, but that apparently is not possible. They've got to get their designs finalized so they can go out for bid. And I think also the funding issue is something that I think they're hesitant to pursue on our behalf. They have offered a trade if we would take over the maintenance of University Avenue. We would get about $800,000 in life cycle costs put toward the project for us. That's a little bit risky. We've got a couple of bridges there. The pavement itself is in pretty good shape. There's some walls that they've been maintaining, so that may not be a total savings for us either. So again, Public Works will have a busy meeting as we discuss that. We'll be getting some more information together on the composite area, and we'll know better after tomorrow whether we have the potential of having Hot Springs be a National Veterans Town. The next thing that I want to touch on are the Canton lots. Again, I thank the council for approving that plot. We're putting the RFP out, and there has been some interest, and so I'm hopeful this time that we will have some people that are interested in building some workforce houses for us. We've had a company from Gary, Nebraska that does precast concrete, and they're very anxious to have an opportunity to show their stuff at that location. We've had a local builder that's come into the office and asked about it, and also pre-built housing operation out of Springfield, Missouri that might be interested. So we've got some interest, and hopefully that will bring some answers to our RFPs, and by next spring we'll be starting some workforce housing on the Canton lots. And again, that's so important for Hot Springs that we prime that pump, because when we're looking at issues like keeping the VA, having quality people come to live here and work here, they need housing. It's a big problem in all of western South Dakota. And I think in many respects, hearing from other communities, we are somewhat ahead of the game. So thanks to you and the council for your oversight and ability to think ahead and come up with a housing plan. Just one, also quickly, a positive note. Our building permits for the year thus far has taken a significant jump. We have $5.6 million total building permit issued this year. And that large jump came as a result of Fall River Health's addition. We're getting that finalized, and as you've noticed, they've already begun work on that, and that building permit should be issued for the actual building construction, structure construction shortly. Looking at it, we've had 51 projects that have been undertaken in Hot Springs this year. We have one building inspector, and his task is to ensure that all those projects are done according to code. And oh, by the way, he's also responsible for enforcing the codes as far as property appearance and so forth. We felt that making sure that the codes are being built, the code is being our most important priority. So we have suffered a little bit on the appearance side. Out of that, 2.2 million of that is residential, and that's a good sign too. We've got some new houses going up. And again, I want to thank you as a council. Tonight was we had a very, very difficult decision to make, you all did. And I thank you for the professionalism. There's always going to be some issues. Most of the issues we decide are pretty straightforward, and we can all agree on. But there's some issues that creates some consternation in how we vote and handle the debate and the discussion very professionally, and I just want to thank you all. And with that said, I'd like to ask for a motion to go into executive session for legal and personnel.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for legal and personnel.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded to go into executive session for legal and personnel. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And let's take about a 5-minute bio break here before we convene. 10:15, we're reconvened. I'd accept a motion to adjourn. So moved. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Adjourned. Thank you.
Please, department.